Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well on this terrific Tuesday. You're looking amazing, by the way. And do you know what? This video is going to split the room somewhat, I do believe, but I don't care anymore. I genuinely don't care anymore, because one thing has always stood out to me in the Idaho 4 case, and that is that there is just a deafening silence around this case. A deafening silence. And sometimes it's that silence that speaks absolute volumes. Because look, we are heading on for 2 years. 2 years since this crime was committed. Now, from a trial perspective, it ain't that long of a time. In fact, we've seen other crimes that are perhaps similar to this, like Delphi, for instance, that took a substantially longer amount of time. But the Idaho 4 case we're about a year and a half deep into it, and heading towards 2 years. And like I say, there is a deafening silence. In terms of Bryan Kohberger, there's not really been anything that's come out from a public perspective in terms of pushing that he's some sort of monster. You know, there's no real evidence out there that he was this ticking time bomb, so to speak. There's been some stories that have come out that have been grabbed and certainly adapted to fit a guilty persona. Like even the survey that Bryan Kohberger did, that was clearly a survey that he had to do for his studies, was twisted into some form of narrative that would lead you to believe that he was on the hunt for perhaps a killer, a help. And that just wasn't the case. In my opinion, it just wasn't the case. There hasn't been enough credible stories to come out that would lead you to believe that Bryan Kohberger was indeed this ticking time bomb. You know what? Just nothing. And every single thing that you've seen twisted in reality is no different than a normal story, than an absolute normal story. And again, I'm not ignorant or naive to completely scrub out the fact that Bryan Kohberger is not capable of doing such a crime. I'm just saying that 2 years down the line, there hasn't really been anything come out that would lead you to a red flag, so to speak. And with respect of the victims in all this, there hasn't been any real support come out. Nothing. There's been no supportive stories. There's been nobody who's been willing to come out and speak upon this entire case. You know, we have a gag order, but the gag order covers the people in the courtroom and the people connected to those in the courtroom. So anybody can speak about anything they want. Anybody can. Any of the victims' families, anybody whatsoever. Yet the only voice that seems to be out there is the Goncalves family. And they have become, in my opinion, an incredibly dangerous tool in all this, as they have an army of around 65,000 people following them religiously and listening to what they have to say. And what do they have to say? Well, they hide behind certain things. Like, they will come out and they will say that they want a fair trial. You know, when they are having a release statement following a large event, such as a court hearing, and the public are waiting, and they know most people are going to be looking to see what they say, they come out and say that, you know, we want a fair trial. We want the trial to be fair. But then when things close off again and people start commenting, they show their true colours. They show their true colours. And that is that they're not interested in a fair trial whatsoever. They've made their mind up. And they want to steer their army in a specific direction. And there was a comment made, and I'll put it on the screen here. Hearing a lot about Bryan's rights, and Taylor is full of it. I believe Bryan is innocent. Yeah, sure you do. And the Goncalves family reply to that, I hate it. Can she shut up already? It's very clear. And look, the Goncalves family have lost a child. So have the other parents, though. This is the Idaho 4. This isn't the Idaho 1 or the Idaho 2, as they try to convince the world that they lost 2 children in this, as in Maddie as well. Maddie weren't their child. She was a friend of their daughter's. So they lost 1 child in this, and that's horrendous. It is absolutely horrendous. But losing a child doesn't give you the right to actively try to destroy justice for everybody else lost in that. And that is what is going to happen if people aren't careful. Bryan Kohberger is entitled, in accordance with his rights as a US citizen, he is entitled to a fair trial. He is entitled to have every single thing everything considered that should be considered. Now, if there is evidence out there that the evidence used in order to arrest him and charge him with this crime is missing something, has been manipulated in a certain way, has been planted full stop, then there is a very, very strong reason that should be looked into. Killing someone like Bryan Kohberger, for instance, because he could face the death penalty, that should not be an easy thing to do. It shouldn't be an easy thing to do. And the downside with the Goncalves family, that is an easy thing to do. We have heard that straight from the horse's mouth. Christy Goncalves stated categorically that she doesn't want him breathing anymore. And they are operating in a way that is forming a large army of people with that same mentality. And it is rife in this, to the point where they're not even looking at this right. I'm not going to show you the page because they'll strike the channel. But like, for instance, here, Judge needs to wake up and grow a set of balls, set a trial date. He is, in my opinion, biased and is always trying to please the defendant's attorney. P.S. Also, perhaps he could show some respect by pronouncing the victims' names correctly and by sitting up and not smile nor smirk, and not resting his head in his hands all the time. Which a proportion of that I do agree with. The judge is showing utter disrespect all the time. But to say that he is biased and always trying to please the defense, that is ludicrous. Absolute ludicrous. But as you read through these comments, it's the same all the time. It's all the same through there. It's one thing after another. I'm still with his alibi as stargazing, like we believe that, and Taylor is full of it. They want more time to stall this to see if something sticks. I feel bad for all the families. And then all these stupid conspiracies that are going around don't help. These people are doing more damage. They think they are Inspector Gadgets that will solve the crime. No, it's not about being Inspector Gadget. It's about not ignoring stuff that is possibly indicative of other things need to be looked at. And I would challenge anybody to put themselves in Bryan Kohberger's shoes and consider, what if Bryan Kohberger didn't do this crime? Or is this just about making the Goncalves family happy? So the Goncalves family can have a load of people go to them and say, oh, we was right, and you got justice. Justice was served. So in order to do that, you just want to ignore everything. You want to ignore the fact that the evidence in the PCA is circumstantial. It is circumstantial evidence at best, with people coming forward that are saying that there are things in there that simply can be proven, that they don't prove that he was there doing the crime. Does that make sense? People seem to think that the PCA is fact. They confuse the PCA with fact. That at this stage, it's not fact. It hasn't been proven to be fact. There's no element in that has been proven to be fact. Not one thing. And the Goncalves family have taken the centre stage and created a huge volume of people that are going out into, into the communities and spouting the stuff that they spout, and comment and after comment after comment, pushing the PCA as if it's fact, and becoming infectious and stopping people from being able to step back and understand that there is a long way to go in this trial. There is a long way to go in this road to justice. And in order to obtain true justice, you have to consider everything. And sadly, that consideration goes to not only the things that could potentially send a guy to death, but free him from it. You have to look at both sides of the coin. You can't just say, oh, we're not going to look at that. We're not going to consider that. We're not going to give that any time of day at all. We're not interested in that. And in order to sit there and say that you want a fair trial, if you truly wanted a fair trial, then you would be open to your community and saying, look, we want a fair trial. If there is evidence out there that could support that Bryan Kohberger didn't do this crime, then we owe him the opportunity to have that looked into and exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. Because if you're going to send someone to death for a crime, then you damn sure better hope that you have done every single thing in your power to avoid doing it. To me, it just seems far too easy that people just want to close the door and say, no, we're satisfied. We're satisfied, send them to death. That makes you no better than whoever did this crime. No better. Because you want to, basically, the bare bones of it, you want to kill someone even though you have been told that there is evidence that may support that he didn't do it. And you want to ignore that just to satisfy your need for blood. And that makes you no better than the person who did this, whether it be Bryan Kohberger or not. So if you are part of that army of people who are not interested and you do not want to listen to both sides of the story and give time to hear both sides of that story, then you're a fucking piece of shit. Regardless of your situation and scenario. There is no excuse for it. Let me know down below what you think, and I'll catch you all in the next one.